Hello, everybody. Hey, how you doing? We're here today to talk about a lot of the things that are wrong with the Halbach investigation. So, before we get into that, I'm going to go ahead and I'll play a little something here. Somebody else who's already said it pretty well, and for those of you who haven't checked out Fen over on Twitter, you should go check her out. Her hashtag 80 more things tweets where she's doing one a day are brilliant. You guys go check those out. But this here is Rule Griffin, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. So here we go.
They say that Stephen lured her to the yard and TH had no address. Bliss lied in court, but Teresa, she surely did not have to guess. All those voicemails to the zipper, somehow Jacobs lost them all. But one of them turned out to be a replacement for the Yannicol. In this case, we surely see a wicked voicemail gate. These kind of things can only happen in the state of disingenuous Wisconsin. They said it was too dark to see any blood in the car at Avery's yard, but they were able to read the text on that teeny-weeny SD card. They said because it's locked we cannot explore inside of that RAV4. When it arrived at the lab, they suddenly Sesame opened the driver door. How it got there, wrong way round, that does need no debate. These kinds of possible things only happen in the state of disingenuous Wisconsin.
Disingenuous Wisconsin, folks.
They said that Bushman was just helping us volunteer. But anyway, why was he in charge of all of those cops on that important day? Cuss Road was a gift to draw all attention away from ASY. Bushman wrote no report, so we can just guess the actions of this guy. Next day, all important stuff was found, November 8th. This kind of staging can only happen in the state of disingenuous Wisconsin. They say those bones were found in Stephen's pit and we saw those photos made. But for some weird reason, all of them did somehow evaporate. Now Deborah Kakach would certainly have put on there a decent grit, but she was withheld by the sheriff from scrutinizing Stephen's pit. Willis could not see the relevance. Well, you're blind and mate. This kind of trap can only happen in the state of disingenuous Wisconsin. They say that Stephen's DNA was obtained from that Toyota key. Sure looks like a magic thing, because why would it be TH-free? The key was found after heavily shaking that wooden thing near Stephen's bed. But somehow all those coins remained where they were, as if glued to the cabinet. I think they didn't get the order of these photos straight. This kind of swapping is only allowed in the state of disingenuous Wisconsin. They say that Brendan was no suspect, they needed just some witness quotes. Investigators did an interview, but why then those mere notes? They say their storyline was made out of facts provided by his team. But on each question he gave 4 answers, at least for them to choose between. Guessing until it matched what Bert and Ernie did create. This kind of BS can only happen in the state of disingenuous Wisconsin. They say reports on items sent to the FBI were all sent through, but somehow they forgot the possibly exculpatory thing Q2. They said the garage was clean, so that's why they did not find Teresa's blood. But that concrete was tested and it had Steven's blood. Okay, now what? Miracle bleach that kills only female blood. That must be great. These kind of miracles only happen in the States.
It's kind of miracles.
Disingenuous Wisconsin. They said they had the bones available for the rapid DNA. When it turned out the bag was empty, they threw the bones in bad faith away. Violation of due process and probably also destitute. Evidence handling evidently is in this county clearly screwed. Case or ledger full of holes with things that don't relate. This kind of sloppiness only happens in the state of disingenuous Wisconsin. Disingenuosity continuing up to date. Steve and Brendan both got screwed by the state of disingenuous Wisconsin. Disingenuous Wisconsin. Disingenuous Wisconsin.
Awesome. I freaking love it, Rule. Oh, that thing is great. I freaking dig it. Dude, the lyrics are so funny on that. I mean, funny but true. They're funny because they're true. Oh my God, these kinds of miracles. Oh my God, that was great. These kinds of miracles only happen in with the bleach that only kills female blood or Teresa Halbach's blood specifically, right? But leaves deer blood, Stephen's blood, and all other kinds of manner of stuff there. These kind of miracles only happen in disingenuous Wisconsin. Oh, I love it. Anyway, so figured Rule's song would be fitting here because it's kind of right in line with what today's video is going to be about. So hope you guys all enjoyed that. So anyways, so obviously we're here today to talk just about things, and you know, we're going to kind of go through the investigation sort of. Now, am I going to probably overlook a few things here today? Yeah, I'd say it's probably a good chance I might. But I have a list of things, and I'm pretty sure that my list is going to lead me to remember other things, and so I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to cover a lot of things here. Plus, we'll have people in the chat who will most likely be speaking up and pointing out some little things that that they also notice, and so that may anyway. So we're going to try and just basically kind of run through and just go and look at all the stuff in this investigation that you can look at and just go, what the was happening right there? Right? You know, so my hair's on fleek. Thanks, Al Fallon. Ahu is a dashing fellow. Oh, I know. Thank you for the compliments, folks. See, it's whenever I put on the black shirt and the tie, right? It's something about this black shirt, I guess, right? Huh? I should get a blue one though. I should get a really like a dark blue one, but you know, I'll have to work on that. Then if I get a dark blue shirt, I'm gonna have to get a black tie. You know. Anyway. Actually, I got a Wrecking Crew tie coming. That'd probably work. Anyways, getting off topic. That shirt and tie again, trying to impress Eunice again. Hey, like I said, Paul, I have new ties coming, and actually I'm supposed to go pick up some ties from somebody, some pretty special ties from somebody, and I've got to remember to get up there probably this weekend. Maybe I think I might head up there and see and get those. Anyway, that's off topic again. All the stuff will take a mammoth on you. Yeah, right? So we're going to hit the high points, right? You know, I'm just going to hit the high points. And then, you know, obviously after this video, maybe Allie and I and, you know, some other folks, maybe even, maybe 7 pairs and some of the Redditors will just sit down and make a comprehensive thing. And maybe Allie and I will go one weekend where we just kind of hand it off back and forth to each other for the weekend or something, going through just the timeline and pinpointing all the just silly and crazy things that happen. Yeah. Anyway, it's worth a try or worth the thought. Anyway. Yes, match those baby blues. Yeah, that's why I said if I got a dark blue shirt and match my eyes and Hello from Washington. Hey there, Larry. Watching MAM2 again. One of the big things was no mixture of blood in the RAV4. Yeah, that's another thing. And when I talk about the blood today, I'm going to be talking about how little of it there was from Stephen. And when I was going to talk about the fingerprints and I was going to talk about the hood latch, but that's another good point. Is that there is not a mixture of blood. You don't see any of Stephen's blood in the cargo area where Teresa's blood is found. And that's odd if he's the one that killed her and was actively bleeding, right? Why there should be his blood there mixed in with hers if he's the one that supposedly put her into the back of the RAV. So it is odd. But so yeah, that's definitely one thing. What's to do from the Wrecking Crew, or what's next for the Wrecking Crew? The Wrecking Crew they're having a lot of conversations right now. I'll tell you what, the chats are going on in there right now. That we've got, we now have the Redditors. Most of the Redditors who were on Mammothon are now in there, and they're informing the conversation further with their kind of knowledge and everything they've been digging and learning. So it's really becoming a great community over there on Discord and in Cozy's Wrecking Crew, and I think it's great. I think it's awesome. I honestly just to see people coming together and to be enthusiastic about getting at this and getting at justice and getting at what's and not allowing it to be just covered up and swept under the rug like is so desperately wanted by the people in this case who are exposed and have reason to be concerned. So we can't allow it to be swept under the rug. And so it's awesome to see all these people coming together over there on Discord, even here on YouTube, on Allie's channels and everybody's channels right now. I mean, even over on Rubber Ducky's channel this weekend, we had a lot of the Wrecking Crew there, and that sort of stuff. So funny thing is, I was thinking about exactly what he's doing. When will SA get a court date? Who among us has KZ's ear? KZ's ear? Nah, you can. A lot of people know how to send her an email, and that's about it. And that really goes to what's the guy's name? Forget his name, but there's a guy who's like I guess I don't know, office assistant there or whatever at Zellner Law, and he's like the guy who gets the emails and kind of sifts through and that sort of stuff. I don't know about a direct ear personally. Okay, yes, to get to El Fallon's question real quick. Don't know when Convicting Murder is being released yet. That, as far as I can tell, they're still shopping it around. So, when will Stephen Avery get a court date? Okay, that's right now up in the air. We are still waiting for Judge Sukowitz. Yeah, Sukowitz. We are still waiting for her to say something, anything. Deny it, whatever. I mean, we're just still waiting. She's been briefed. She got a response from the state she didn't ask for, and then she got a motion for leave to file a reply to the state's unasked for response from Zellner. So she's got everything there, and we're all just waiting for her to decide. Judge Sukowitz could say, okay, I'm ordering an evidentiary hearing, at which point she will set a date for that hearing. or for preliminary hearings or whatever it might be, right? She will set that date at the moment she decides she's going to grant a hearing. So what we're waiting for right now is for her to do something, right? If she denies it, then we go ahead right back to the appellate courts again. And now, but with the destruction of evidence stuff now added on to the everything else going on in the appeal, right? So that's where it's at. That's what's going to happen. Court date, we might get a court date, or we might be going back to the Court of Appeals. Not sure yet. It's even possible that she could just order a new trial right there on the spot without a need of evidentiary hearing, at which point there might be dates given for things. I don't know. That would work out a whole different way, but I would say that's probably unlikely. I doubt that Judge Sugowitz is going to just do that. I think the best we could expect from her would probably be just an evidentiary hearing. But I likely think she's going to follow suit with what she did with the CD and just deny it all, just whatever. It's all, she's going to say it's all pointless and stupid, which we already know the Court of Appeals doesn't really necessarily agree with that assessment. So hope that answers your question. No chance of success for recusal, I'm afraid. No. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. She's not going to recuse herself. She's going to continue to go on the way she has. I mean, she feels like she's completely pretty much in the right. Judge Sukowitz does. So, I don't think we're going to see that. Plus, she said in her previous, that it was asked for her to recuse herself before, and her response to it was that, even if she were to want to recuse herself, that it was the improper time to ask, or something like that. Like, she's not actually able to now at this point in time or something. It's really odd. It was really odd, but I just don't think that will happen. If she denies it, then what is the next step? If she denies it, it goes all this stuff now, this stuff about the bones, everything that's been, collected now in terms of that, then goes and becomes part of Stephen's appeal, which you've heard us talk about here on the channel. We were doing the PowerPoint presentations covering the motion for post-conviction relief, and we still got to finish that, by the way. We still have the last couple segments of that to do. The person we had that was going to help us with the PowerPoint went silent on us, so, anyway. So, we got to address that, but like we covered in those videos, those are all the issues that are part of Stephen's appeal already, okay? And now it's had the CD that was held in Tom Fassbender's custody for 12 years added to the appeal. And now if Judge Sukowitz was to deny deny a hearing, deny everything and whatever, and it goes back to the Court of Appeals, now all the destruction of evidence will become part of Stephen's appeal. All of that stuff that Zellner filed basically in the original motion for post-conviction relief would the bones being given back to the Halbachs would then be added to all of those things, and it would be all of those things that are getting reviewed by the Court of Appeals eventually when this appeal gets going. It was about to get going when Zellner realized that the state was hiding things, hiding the fact that they had given these bones back. And once she realized that, she immediately filed because she didn't want to wait. Why? Why didn't she want to wait, folks? How many people know? Tell me in chat. Come on. How many people know why Zellner did not want to wait to file about it? Good thing Travis isn't here because he would have already shouted it out. Some of his parents are like, all right. Let's see if anybody knows. Wait for more dirt. No, why did Zellner not wait, as the state suggested she should have done in one of its briefs or whatever? Why didn't Zellner wait to file about the destruction or about the bones being? Yes, Lisa B got it. Lisa B got it. Okay, it's the procedural bar. Okay, she did not want to wait because she would have gotten procedurally barred from presenting it. if she wasted any time, right? And we all know how keen the state is to point out procedural bar. They're freaking leaning on it like a crutch, right? Right. That's exactly right, Lisa B. Exactly right. And so that's why she didn't wait. And it was unfair, and I'm still got to get back to our original topic here, and it's not fair that the state and the media there in Wisconsin, when she decided to ask the Court of Appeals to send the to basically send the whole bone issue, being the bones being given back and all that stuff, and the hiding of it, and all that being sent back to the district court. And this, you get some of the state and the news agencies there reported as Zellner's wasting the court's time and wasting everybody's time in this languishing appeal, and all these things that they were saying. You know what? You know whose fault it is that this appeal is taking forever? It's the state's fault. The state didn't hand the CD over before Stephen made his motion for post-conviction relief. They handed it over after Judge Sukowitz made her decision denying it. Then they handed it over. So she goes, "Hey, we got this CD. This is a Brady violation." It gets sent back to the circuit, to the district court. Judge Sukowitz denies it. So now the CD and that Brady issue becomes part of the appeal. Then Zellner's just about to file the appeal and start the appeal going again after the CD issue. And as soon as she's about to do that, that's when these ledgers come out, and it becomes painfully clear that the state has obviously given these bones back, to the Halbachs. And that is a problem, because at trial they said they couldn't spend 20 seconds on those bones because the best that could be said about them was they were possible human. But clearly they think they were Teresa. And why were they saying they didn't want to spend 20 seconds on them at trial? Why were they saying that? Well, because they didn't want the jury to buy into Dean and Jerry's, assertion that this whole burning and everything all happened out in the quarries where the dogs were going, right? So they didn't want the jury to buy into that. That's why it was important for them to not represent those bones as being Teresa's. But yet we can tell they clearly believed those bones were Teresa's. Otherwise, why would you have given them back? Right? Right. Okay. Hope it. I knew that blooming net. Is it time to call for an indictment of King Kratz? Why not exhume pelvic bone ASAP? It might be contaminated, but that can't turn a non-human bone into a human bone, so that part can still be assessed. That's true, Roll, but the problem is, okay, so to get at the bones, which Travis has said a few times, it's not an impossibility. Okay? It's not an impossibility. One of two things needs to happen. The state approaches the Halbachs, or even Zellner approaches the Halbachs and asks if those bones can be exhumed to be tested. Then there's going to be an argument by whichever side feels that this evidence is going to be against them. There's going to be an argument that the bones are contaminated, so any testing done on them and any results yielded from testing on them is suspect, because they have now been contaminated and handled by several other people as they were getting put in the ground and that sort of thing, right? So that's going to be a problem. That's going to be an argument that's made if these bones get used in a court of law. So that's the rub, I guess I should say. It could happen. And then the other way it could happen is that Judge Sukowitz herself could order it. She could issue a court order to have the bones exhumed. So that's the other way it could happen. Mm-hmm. How many days is it left for the judge to reply? Give me a number. Oh, I think. See, we're in May. I think we're roughly maybe, I don't know. I think she might be 15 days or so, maybe 15, 20 days. I may be wrong. I may have something miscalculated. Oh, it's due on the 15th. Okay, so less than 15 days. So, but Travis has said that, but Judge Sukowicz could then ask the appeals court, look, I'm not, I need a little more time or whatever. And I believe she can get an additional 90 days. I believe it was an additional 90 days. So Judge Sukowicz could drag this thing out for quite a while. And you know what? If she does, she further shows that it's not Zellner holding this up. Right? And so part of me kind of hopes that she'll do that. Just so that it will take that stupid idiotic argument out of people's mouths that it's Zellner wasting time here. It certainly is not Zellner wasting time. It's the state and the way that they are playing games, handing the CD over after the motion is denied, not before, so it can be added to the motion for post-conviction relief, but after. Do you understand the insaneness of that decision-making? I mean, it's ridiculous. Why isn't that getting handed over before it's denied? You talk about how everything all needs to be brought together at one time, and yet you hand over that CD. I mean, dude, this is one of the things that really just gets me about this case. It's like the way that CD is handed over just shows so many levels of disingenuosity from the state. Just freaking on monumental levels of just disingenuosity. When you listen to them argue about how, when motion for post-conviction 97406, you're supposed to bring everything all together at one time, all together. You're not supposed to do piecemeal, blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's only becoming piecemeal because of the way you guys are conducting yourselves. That's the only reason it's becoming piecemeal. It's just ridiculous, and just drives me insane sometimes to listen to some of the arguments. So I hope Judge Sukowicz does drag her feet. I really do. I hope she drags her feet and asks for another 90 days and drags out that 90 days as well. I really do. Because it's going to show that it's the state of Wisconsin that is dragging their feet here, not Zellner. Anyways. From that side, awaiting ruling from Circuit Court Access Time, the court rule should rule within 60 days of May 10th. So that'll be tomorrow. Oh, maybe there'll be something tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. She could potentially file it literally at like 4:59, and then we probably wouldn't end up seeing it until Monday, because if she files it that late in the day, it won't get processed by the clerk, and so therefore won't be available. And so that's interesting. But yeah, so maybe tomorrow. But like I said, she could ask for an additional max of 90. So, okay, so she could rule anywhere between then and then. So, yeah. That's what I get for wanting to plant flowers. But if she drags her feet, that means more time for Brendan and Steven. Well, yeah, but it continues to make the state look bad, and it continues to show that they're the ones that are dragging their feet. I think it's important for that to be illustrated. I'm not about wanting to make a quick run to get Steven and Brendan out. No, I'm actually more of a mind of sit back, wait, collect, observe, figure out what's going on, get all your ducks in a row, then come at them. That's more of the way I prefer it. So I'm not looking for quick, easy ways. If Judge Sukowicz is going to illustrate the state of Wisconsin's lack of wanting to deal with this, and the fact that they are loath to deal with it, and the fact that they don't want to deal with it, I hope she goes ahead and makes that painfully clear by dragging her feet, because It was them saying that it was Zellner dragging this down. It's not Zellner dragging this down. And that if Judge Suk decides to drag her feet, that's what she's going to make painfully clear for everybody, not just us supporters. It's going to prove that it's Wisconsin that's dragging its feet. I understand that. Amber Lee, I totally understand that. I really do too. But just I've been watching this court stuff long enough, and watching the way things go, and trust me, you just want to come in with the strongest arguments. You want to have it all prepared, and you want it. It's just you want to be set up for success on post conviction. You really do have to have all your ducks in a row. Otherwise, nobody gets out to see anybody. For me, it's just I've seen enough now that there's no quick avenue. But if you do it right, and you really pound away on it, it will eventually get noticed. So I do feel you. I want Stephen to get out so he can be with his mom and dad as well. I totally feel that and everything. So before KZ retires, I don't know, even have time for school. But Scott T is time for you to become a lawyer already. Let's see here. I do agree with that. We don't want to end up getting a new trial and going bust. KZ has it all covered, and I believe in that. So, yeah. Okay, so to get on to the subject of today's conversation, pretty much, and that is just going through and looking at all the things wrong throughout Stephen Avery's experience with the Wisconsin justice system. And that means I'm going to start in 85, right? Two reasons why I'm starting in 85. Number one, I believe the 85 case shows a history of corruption and just dirty dealings in the law enforcement there in the area. And the second reason is because Michael Bushman was he was one of the officers that came to arrest Stephen Avery for the rape of Penny Burnson. Michael Bushman was one of the officers there to arrest Stephen. You guys have been hearing Michael Bushman's name. You even heard Rule mention Michael Bushman in his song. Okay? Michael Bushman was part of the arrest party that originally arrested Stephen Avery in 1985. And that's why I'm starting in 1985. For that reason, and like I said before, because I think it shows a history of corruption in the law enforcement in that area. So to briefly go through what's going on with 1985 is, number one, you have the arrest party who Michael Bushman's a part of. Also, Ken Peterson. Ken Peterson and Michael Bushman are buds. They're like close, tight buddies, right? Okay. They are there to they are there to arrest Stephen for the rape of Penny Burnson. Okay. We know, because we've seen Making a Murder, we've seen, the proof that, number one, they pretty much understood and knew that it was Gregory Allen, but didn't care. And there's a few reasons why we know that. The Gregory Allen folder that was actually in Stephen Avery's file box in Vogel's office. There's actually a envelope in there, or a file folder in there that had paperwork for Gregory Allen. One folder in there, right? We know that Gregory Allen was being observed by Brown County that day. But the two officers that were observing him right before Penny Burnson got attacked by Gregory Allen, two cops that were surveilling him that day had to go and do something else. They had to leave, and they took off, and they were no longer watching him. And that's when this happened. Vogel at one point lied and said that it couldn't have been Gregory Allen because Gregory Allen was in Sturgeon Bay that day. He said that. It's a lie. He was raping Penny Burnson. that day. He wasn't anywhere near Sturgeon Bay, right? So you have that, where they basically understood and knew that it was Gregory Allen. To further throw that into sharper relief, we have the call from Brown County to Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, letting them know they have somebody that they're talking to, and he is taking credit for crimes that they have somebody in prison for, and everything, right, or whatever, and so they're just so happens Andrew Colburn was the one who answered this call, and he's the one that answered this call, and he clearly knows that it was talking about Stephen Avery. He clearly understands that. And the reason we know that is because literally 8 years later, the day after Stephen Avery is released from prison and exonerated, he writes a statement, as he puts it. Okay, and that statement is basically just saying that he received a call from Brown County Police Department back in 1998 or 97, whatever, 97, 98, whatever it was, and that he received that call and whatever, and blah, 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 and so he was suddenly writing a statement about it 8 years later, the day after Stephen Avery is released from prison, exonerated. So you have that, where it's just showing that they know what's going on. It's been pointed out to them, and they don't care. Okay. You want to throw it into even further sharper leaf. You want to, even sharper leaf on it. Look at Ken Peterson on Dr. Phil. Okay. Ken Peterson's former Manitowoc County head sheriff. After Kosaric, he was the head sheriff for a long time before Herman. So Peterson was on Dr. Phil, and he actually said that he still thinks Stephen raped Penny Bernson. He still believes that to this day. He clings to that belief to this day. So how can I have any kind of faith in the intelligence of any law enforcement officer in Wisconsin if head sheriffs like him can be elected and can be in charge? I mean, if that's the kind of idiocy we have in the head sheriff's position, I can only imagine the level of idiocy we have below the head sheriff, right? So that's why the 1985 case is another huge problem. You also have the fact that Michael Griesbach, who became the Manitowoc County District Attorney, right, after, and sometime in 2004, I think, or I'm not sure when exactly, but he after he was done helping Stephen get exonerated, he ends up becoming Manitowoc County District Attorney. He actually buried the documents and the accounts that showed that Andrew Colburn received a call from Brown County Police Department indicating that they had the wrong guy in prison for a crime that somebody that they were questioning admitted to. He hides that. He doesn't send it to the Attorney General's office, Peg Lautenschlager. He doesn't send that information there. He leaves that out. Right? And what is Michael Griesbach doing now? He's representing Andrew Colburn in his, defamation suit against Netflix and everybody, right? Why is he doing all these things for Andrew Colburn? Why is he covering for Andrew Colburn? This is a question I legitimately have. Why? Why did you do it then, and why are you now representing him in this, lawsuit? I mean, you can't deny that the sequence of events for him are fishy, extremely. I just can't understand why Michael Griesbach, back then and to this day, is still so keen to protect Andrew Colburn and be his knight in shining armor. right? So I don't know. I think that's interesting. So that's a lot of what I have issues with in the 85 case. I mean, just that, and I mean all the things you see happen there. Gene Cush clearly drawing a picture that looked like Steven in his mugshot from 2 years ago or whatever, right? You know, clearly drawing a picture that looked like Steven from then. And then you look at Steven, what he actually looked like at the time. He didn't have his curly hair; it was straighter, it was blonder, and all this stuff. And he looked nothing like the picture that Cush drew. But the picture Cush drew looked a lot like Stephen Avery's old, mugshot when he was arrested like 2 years previous or something like that, right? So that's interesting. So you see this whole seam of corruption that runs through 1985. You can't deny it. He ends up getting exonerated from it because it was a mess. Okay? Now here we are with Teresa Halbach investigation. Right? And we're seeing the same seams running through. Right? Saying the same damn seams. And we're seeing the same denials, the same arguments, the same everything that they made for 1985. They're now making the same arguments and saying the same damn things and saying the same damn excuses now. I think that's telling. Let's see what we got here. I want to, but Air Force Academy graduation and filming Thunderbirds. We shall see. Maybe I can get it right. Idiots are being elected once in a while. Yeah. Kim Peterson, absolutely. And he also says where it would have just been easier to kill Steven. No. If Steven suddenly ended up dead, you guys would have been the prime, suspects. I mean, give me a break. Would have been easier to kill him. Jeez. Reespack was just gathering credibility for hitting at SA and TH case by pretending he was outraged about the 1985 case handling. He didn't mean a word of it. Smoke and mirrors. I agree. I think Michael Griesbach is a greasy dude. I just think he's a greasy guy. Remember, he was on a 2-day course to learn to draw that well. I think that comment. I have questions I dare not ask publicly. Okay. So, if we move on from 1985, and we'll start with, and I left the video for you guys down below. It's my video I did about the bones. Literally, it was like one of the first 10 videos I made. You guys will see my really old background, right? To that day, that I still stand behind that video a great deal. There's some parts of it that I think maybe I've changed my little mind slightly about certain little aspects maybe, but for the most part, 98% of that video, I still really feel those opinions are solid and valid. So you see the link down in the information below there. That's my video that I did about the bones originally, back, like I said, it was in like one of my first 10 videos. So in that video, we're seeing a lot of things, a lot of stuff. It's crazy, right? It starts out with Bushman. You may have been wondering why I was bringing Bushman up in 1985. Well, that's because he shows up in the Teresa Halbach investigation, right? He shows up over on Cuss Road, points out this strange earth, as he calls it, over by Cuss Road. And Ertl gets dragged away from the burn barrels that they were sifting over at Calumet County Sheriff's Department and gets called out onto Cuss Road, where he proceeds to dig up what is essentially a dead stump. It's basically just a dead stump of a tree or whatever. There's it looks like it was potted or something because there was peat moss in there underneath it as well, and all this stuff. And see, Ertl has a background in botany. It's he knows plants and stuff. He has a strong background in it. So he was saying almost immediately when he found it was like, oh, this looks like a dead tree, dead, whatever, decaying tree or whatever. But he had to go ahead and dig this whole thing up or whatever. Then they go back and they sift the rest of Burn Barrel 2 after this, right? They sift the rest of Burn Barrel 2, and that's where they found bones. And while they were because they were sifting these burn barrels that day, right? And just after lunch, they got a call to go out to Avery Salvage to Cuss Road to dig up this dead stump, right? The barrel they were working on when they got called out to Cuss Road was Barrel 2. Barrel 2 is the barrel that had the bones, that they found bones in, right? Also, as they're getting called out to Cuss Road to dig up the dead stump, Burn Barrel 4 is being put back on a truck, and it's going back to Avery Salvage. Why? Why is it? I mean, if it's evidence, but it's already been cleared and all that stuff, so it's going back. Interesting, right? Okay. Might not think anything of that, right? Okay, fine. Okay, they're giving that one back to them, I guess, right? Okay, fine. They didn't find anything in it of value, so whatever. Okay. So that's what you think is probably going to happen. No. Oh, no. Then the video goes on to show you where Ken Kratz, like the next day, the bones are getting found in the fire pit, miraculously. And Ken Kratz is asking for Burn Barrel 4 to be brought back to Calumet County, to go into Calumet County's long-term storage. What? Okay, first off, how does Kratz know that Burn Barrel 4? Well, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is that doesn't seem like a very, very huge, event, the Burn Barrel 4 going back to Avery Salvage. So why would Kratz even be aware of that? To ask that it be brought back and go into Calumet County's long-term storage, right? So these are some of the issues, obviously, and it's like it's to me it's like they were also trying to misdirect Ertl, because I think if Ertl had found the fire pit, he probably would have just went, this doesn't look natural. I think that was the big fear with these guys. The reason why I say that is, number one, I believe those bones weren't there because Cadaver Dog Brutus doesn't hit on the fire pit. In fact, Cadaver Dog Brutus isn't interested in anything around the trailer, to be perfectly honest. He's claimed to have barked once inside the trailer where a drop of Steven's blood was. And his alert is a bark. So from what I understand, he barked one time inside Steven's trailer because he saw a spot of Steven's blood. That's it. He goes outside, walks towards the fire pit, and then, obviously, I guess not detecting any human remains or whatever, starts barking at Bear. Then the trainer pulls Cadaver Dog Brutus back and everything, trying to get Brutus to come back, and so that Brutus doesn't go and try and get tangled up with Bear, right? And so as she's pulling Brutus back, Brutus then comes back, and there was a dog behind the trainer, and Brutus went going after that dog. Suddenly Brutus is like going and chasing after dogs. He doesn't seem to care. He doesn't seem to think that there's any human remains or cremains or anything there. All he was interested in doing at that point was just going and checking out the other dogs, after he saw Bear and all that stuff. It's like, and it's just very interesting. I have another video about that whole thing too. It has some of my footage that I took from the salvage yard last year when I was there last year for rally. And I actually did video of me doing the walk from the car crusher, where the car crusher was to where the RAV4 was. And then I also did some video behind Steven's garage of where the burn pit was and stuff like that. And I talked about Cadaver Dog Brutus and that sort of stuff. So I have another video about that, and I didn't put that one down in the information below, but I think you guys will be able to find that one. Do you think Ertl wasn't one of the boys? I am not sure, Finn. I have jury for me. The jury's out on Ertl. I don't know. There's indicators there that show me he was displeased with his fellows. Does that mean? But I guess what I'm struggling with is, does that equate to, him thinking, that Steven's innocent or something like that? So for me, it's like, how far does it go? Is he just like butthurt about some kind of professional courtesy issue, or does he actually disagree with them and what they did? I'm not sure yet. I personally personally don't know yet. Evidence moving from storage to the crime scene and then back into evidence. Yeah, right. I am more sure that there are way more than 80. Dog's part of her original motion. Yeah, she points out the dogs and stuff in the original motion. Riddle described impossible rap for handling. Andy Pritchard. So, so I talked about Cadaver Dog Brutus not hitting on anything over there with those bones. I mean, so we have this just weird, odd things happening with these bones, right? And suddenly, Bear is finally removed from the situation, and it's like suddenly they're like, "Oh, I know, let's go check out the fire pit." I mean, number one, the way that they report finding these bones, they would have been able to see them if they had just gone over outside of Bear's leash, length, and stood at the edge of that length, and they would have been able to see the bones the way that they described finding them. They would have been able to see it. For me, the excuse that Bear held up this investigation and prevented them is laughable. I mean, honestly, I think they should be ashamed of themselves for even trying to cower and hide behind Bear. I don't know. It's embarrassing. Should be for them anyway. But even then, the way that these, Yost and I believe Sturdivant report finding these bones, you would have been able to see these things from the edge of Bear's leash radius, in my opinion. So there's so much about the state's story that just doesn't wash. It's just not. It just doesn't work. Oh, I don't know. Scoobs is somewhere. Let's see here. Still want to know where this bloody crime scene is. No evidence it ever existed. I agree. There's definitely no way that Brutus would have missed those bones. It's amazing what those dogs do. I agree. He wasn't interested in anything around the trailer. He just wasn't. And I think he eventually just got bored and wanted to go play with other dogs. That's honestly what I think happened. Because she, Cadaver Dog Brutus is a she. She is a highly, highly effective, human cremains detecting dog, cadaver dog. Highly effective. Has won many awards. Is constantly doing testing and everything, and always scores well in testing and and that sort of stuff. Cadaver Dog Brutus is a very, very, very good dog. Good at what she does. So if there had been any hint of anything around that trailer, she would have noticed. And she doesn't. She's not interested, unlike the 6th. I think it's the 5th or the 6th, when Cadaver Dog Brutus is walking around the trailer. Right? So it's just, yeah. Why didn't they just ask someone to put Bear in the garage? It's not proven. Every one of those officers have been trained in handling on-scene animals, and besides that, Bushman was a canine officer. I'm looking for the transcript for that, but I haven't found anything yet. I had a Cocker Spaniel that would sniff out money and steal it. If it wasn't so heartbreaking, it would be comedy. Yeah, that's true. I think Judge S was agreeing with the state at first, but I still have high hopes that she will be like, what the heck is going on? I have to give a friggin' hearing. Yeah, it could be. Maybe she will. Maybe she will. So, to finish up kind of here on the main part of the bones, really, is to talk about Deborah Kakich. Okay? Deborah Kakich is the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department coroner. Now, there's numerous issues with this situation with Deborah. Okay? Number one is she's barred from being able to go on scene at the salvage yard. Okay? That's just odd on its face. Then you get some more of the details. We know that in 1985, Penny Burnson was not killed. So guess which department of Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department wasn't involved in Stephen's 1985 case? Right? That would be the coroner's office at Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. They would be the one sole branch of the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department that didn't have a conflict of interest. Right? So that's enough to make you wonder on its own, right? That if it's the only department that didn't have a conflict of interest, then why are they being barred from the salvage yard? Right? It doesn't make sense. Right? So they call in Calumet's corner, right? Whatever. Okay. They do that. Here's the thing. You guys saw that recent interview with Andy or Rookie and Kratz, and you hear Kratz saying about, what do I need a coroner for? What do I need a coroner for? A coroner just comes in and kicks the body and says they're dead, right? But the fact of the matter is, and Jerry Buting ended up tweeting about it right after he watched the clip with Rookie and Kratz, and he tweets, actually, the coroner was prepared to show up and had a forensic pathologist on board, ready to come to the salvage yard. So, what, Kratz? Well, how much more BS are you going to try and shovel at us? Okay? You had somebody who didn't have a conflict of interest ready to show up with a forensic pathologist, and you turned them away. Why? Then you never even brought a forensic pathologist onto the salvage yard, into that burn pit. You never even did that. Right? Why? Why did you guys not take pictures of the bones, collect all the bones, and then just send them in a box to Leslie Eisenberg? For me, I feel like that would make it difficult for her to do her job as well as I guess should be, because she hasn't seen where they were collected. There's not even any pictures for, really, or, well, not pictures that show the crime scene undisturbed anyway, right? So how is not having a forensic, pathologist on site, how is that advantageous? How is making the decision to stop that, right? How does that work? How does that make any damn sense? Right? Are you talking about Deborah kicked the body Kakich? Yeah. Pools of blood, maybe a quote from a tabloid, right? Well, the fact that there aren't pictures of the bones, yeah, absolutely. Why do we need a DA? The judge just kicks the suspect. TTM tweeted a nice one about KK. Why talk degrading about coroners where they evidently are nice to him, even willing to let him take dates to an autopsy? Oh my god, are you kidding me? Highly out of the norm for no coroner. Yeah, well, no, but they brought Calumet's in, even though, and Calumet County's coroner didn't bring a forensic pathologist. He didn't. No, okay. They turned away the person who was coming prepared, and brought in the Skippy, who just kind of came in and winged it, right? So anyway. That was just my phone ringing. So, okay. So from that point, we talked about the bones, the suspicious nature around them being found. I advise everybody to go check out the video down below in the description. So we're going to move on now to talk about the RAV4, right? And some of the issues we have with it and it being found and that sort of thing, right? So we obviously now have the recent account of Kevin Ramlow, who has come out and has said that he saw the RAV4 the week of the 31st, and that he saw Andrew Colburn at the local gas station nearby where he saw it, and he informed Andrew Colburn that he had seen a RAV4 matching the description that was in the missing person poster out by the dam or whatever it was on 47, I think, right? So, so we have that account of Kevin Ramlow, and then we also have the call that we've all heard where he calls into dispatch. And he calls into dispatch, and he's calling in the Sam William Henry 582, right? And we all naturally think, yeah, he's looking at it. Why else would he be calling it in, right? You're out looking for a missing girl, you find a vehicle, you call in the license plate, right? So that's what you would clearly think is happening. He clearly says, "Oh no," because when Dean asks, "Well, you told her that it was a '99 Toyota," and he actually lies and goes, "No, I thought it was her that said that," and so Dean plays it back and says, "It was you," right? And it's like, and we're supposed to believe that you weren't looking at this Toyota, that you were calling it in because Mark Wiegert had just told you the license plate number, so you were just calling it in, like I mean, why? You think Mark Wiegert's going to give you bogus information, the lead investigator? I mean, I don't know. That's just bizarre to me. But I mean, fine, you would double check or whatever. But it's just like, to me, it's just so odd. To try to suggest that he wasn't, looking at that license plate when he called it in is, to me, just BS. Everything in this investigation was unknown for the crime. I've been looking into what goes on in an investigation, and they didn't do anything correct. Yeah, I believe you're right. We don't wish others deaths on this. We don't wish others deaths on this channel. Yeah, we certainly don't. So we have Ramlow who states that he tells Colburn about it. How surreal must that have been for Kevin Ramla, by the way? Hey, guys, is the video breaking up? Are you guys, is there any kind of audio or video issues with you guys hearing me or seeing me? I just need to check because I'm having a little bit of odd things happening here on my side. It's all fine? Okay. So we have Kevin Ramlo making Colburn aware of what he saw, that he saw this RAV4, or at least the RAV4 matching that description, right? And we have his call in to dispatch, which is very fishy. And then there's obviously this, right? This is a document that I'm sure a lot of you have seen. There's actually two documents. I'm going to show you two documents right now that I'm sure a lot of you have seen. But I just want to show them at this point because as we're talking about Andrew Colburn, these documents kind of help, build a picture out. Whoa. Holy crud, guys. I don't know what the hell's happening right here right now. Hold on. There I am. Okay, so it's back. Dude, my computer is wigging out. It's doing some really odd things. So we're going to go ahead and kind of go through this because I want to be able to get through these things before my computer ends up having some kind of fit. So, okay. So Colburn's calling to dispatch. Now, let's see if I can show these to you or not. Okay, some of you may recognize this. As we're talking about Colburn calling in the RAV4, right, on the 4th, 3rd, 4th, whatever it was when that call came in, right? Well, here's an interesting little document. This is part of the document that lets you know that they are reporting Stephen Avery to the FBI as a murder suspect in homicide non-negligent, right? Here on 11/3, folks. That's 2 days before the RAV is found. And they're already reporting Stephen Avery as a suspect in a murder. I mean, how can they even determine a murder? They didn't even find bones until the 8th. How can they be saying anything to this effect? on the 3rd. It's ridiculous. Then to get back to Colburn, all right. You see this? 11/3/2005. Evidence seized. Automobiles. Toyota RAV4. Toyota RAV4 dark green utility. So this is Teresa's car being logged in on 11/3. Right? Further making Andy Colburn's, statements fishier, right? Here I am. Hello. So, I mean, how fishy is it when you look at those documents combined with what we saw with Andy on the stand and everything? I mean, looks very obvious what's happening there. Hey, Travis, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Hey there, Stacy. Good to see you as well, buddy. Sure, it's not bluish. I love it, Rule. I love it, dude. Yeah, it's teal. It's teal, not bluish. It's teal. Yeah, remember King Kratz he kept correcting everybody on the stand. If anybody said green, he would say teal or bluish. Did Dean and Jerry see this doc about the RAV collected on 11/3? I assume they did. Mystic Teal. There you go. Hello, Adrian Gonzalez. Good to see you. Yep. You only have to listen to Stacy's songs and realize how much time he spent with his nose up in the documents. So. Bobby said light green at the trial. KK nearly got a heart attack. Tracy rented a car. Okay. So that's the documents about Stephen being reported to the FBI as a murder suspect on the 3rd. Also, the RAV4 being logged into evidence and seized on the 3rd. Okay, so what else about this investigation? What else? What are some of the big things that pop out, right? What else is there in this thing that that just makes you just want to pull your hair out? Oh, I know. It's the way that the investigation just completely ignored the usual suspects. Just like the usual suspects were just like, here's a get out of jail free card, guys. Here you go. That's what it was. Because who do you normally go after? You go after, the boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend, the people close to the victim that gets filled with the kind of murderous rage, that ends up resulting in murder, right? So that's the usual suspects, but they were all completely ignored because it was all about Avery. They only had eyes for Avery, and not in a good way. Yeah, Adrian was here. She made a comment. Maybe she'll chat with us a bit more. So we have that problem, right? Ryan, Scott Blodorn, Brad Check, completely ignored, virtually completely ignored, right? Then we find out that Scott Blodorn and her actually did have a physical relationship, encounter, however you want to look at it, right? So we know that and we know that at the time they were claiming that they never did. They never had any kind of. They never did. They never had. They never got romantic, or physical, right? That's what Scott Blodorn claimed at the time, that him and Teresa had never, gone that far, right? Well, that's not true. So it's, when you see all these people who are the usual suspects who are lying and getting off scot-free, and then you see the one guy who really isn't one of the usual suspects, who continues to be proved to be telling the truth. None of his statements have been proven false yet, and yet he's the one that gets railroaded for this. I mean, it ain't right. I think they found the RAV4 and TH body, and they took everything and planted the blood. Yeah, I believe they found it somewhere else. I believe the crime scene is somewhere else, and I'd love to know where that is. I actually would. Maybe it was Manitowoc County Gravel Pit, but maybe Manitowoc County Gravel Pit was just a staging area from wherever the original site was. So, it's hard to know because the investigation was so bad. This is why we're so unsure of things, because the investigation was so piss poor, right? So, all evidence pointed to Avery. Well, all that they decided to look at, plus the little things they added. Right, exactly. Ashley Holt, that is very plausible and wouldn't surprise me. It could be Xander Road. I kind of like Xander Road as a place as well. Sharon says she's scot-free. I don't know how she can manage, how she manages that. Corey or Cuss Road. Corey, I think, is going to be the staging area. Oh, you're suggesting those? Yeah, maybe the Corey was, but I'm still thinking that the Corey was a staging point for planting, but maybe not. I mean, maybe it was. I mean, there is some things there to suggest that this all went down over in the quarry, because there's feces over there that gets found. There's the bones over there that get found. There's blood that yields a human male DNA profile that doesn't match Steven. A bloody rag. I mean, the reason why I think the feces is could be important, if it's human feces, if it's in fact Teresa's. When bodies die, from what I understand, they evacuate the bowels, right? So that might explain why there might be some human waste there in the quarry. So it's like all these things should have been looked at and should have been investigated better. But because they were afraid they would point away from Avery, they dropped the ball on all this stuff. And they just ignored it. Tunnel vision, like Andy said, to Kratz. Well, thanks for popping in, Adrian. I knew what you meant, Sharon. Scot-free, I knew what you meant. Just remember not to cuss in the comments. No, he was just a little distracted more of the time. I believe at the time they were known as high dogs. Okay, so we move on to, and I've already been talking about this, the dogs don't lie. Okay, Cadaver Dog Brutus did not detect any cremains by Steven's trailer. Trust me, if there had been something there, most likely Cadaver Dog Brutus would have gotten a hint of it and would have, basically Cadaver Dog Brutus wouldn't have been interested in playing with other dogs that she saw on the salvage yard. She wouldn't have been interested in doing that unless she was bored, because she wasn't smelling or detecting anything, which is her purpose. So I think maybe she kind of lost her focus and didn't just wanted to go play with other dogs. Now, I'm sorry, but that's the way it appears, because her own handler says that she was barking at Brutus, then she pulled back on the chain or whatever, then Brutus ran back the other way and ran behind her and was running towards and barking at a dog that was directly behind her that was with another handler, right? So clearly, so these dogs, number one, didn't find anything around the trailer on the 5th, 6th, I think it was the 5th or the 6th of November. Nothing. Okay. And then you have all these dogs they're being put on the salvage yard, but they're all jumping the berm and heading down into the quarries. Right? And that's where the dogs are running around and finding things. And that's where they're tracking stuff, is in the quarry, not in Avery salvage yard. That's significant. That means that they're more interested in what happened somewhere else. And it's too bad if the state believes that Stephen Avery did this, and they think he's responsible for all that stuff that was going on out in the quarry. Why didn't they prosecute it that way? Right? Why didn't they prosecute it that way? You're right. Most supporters have an area of expertise or interest or simply deep knowledge, having read all the documents over and over. I don't think Scott B has admitted it to Colleen. What about the shallow barrels? The shallow barrel site. She was definitely the dog sports it. Brenda, we can combine all those knowledge on Discord. Anywhere but SA backyard. Yeah, right. It didn't happen at Avery Salvage. That's what's certain. It wasn't in the bedroom. It wasn't in the trailer. It wasn't in the garage. It didn't happen in any of those places. It didn't happen. Didn't happen. Because who would move the bones back to their own doorstep? Precisely. Exactly. That's why the state didn't want to try to pin this on. They didn't want to try to go through some scenario where Avery's running around in the quarry, because then they would have ultimately had to come back around to explaining to the jury. And then he came and brought all those bones and dumped them in his own fire pit. Huh? What? So anyway. So then we get to the RAV4. We get to the blood in the RAV4. Now, somebody else already pointed out at the beginning of this live that one thing is that there's no blood combined in the RAV4. There's none of Stephen and Teresa's blood mixed together in the RAV4. So in the cargo area, it's just Teresa. And then up in the cab area, it's just Stephen. Right? That's weird. That's not the way it usually happens, because if the person who is if somebody's murdering Teresa and they are cut and they are bleeding, then they are going to leave a mixture of their blood with the victim, with Teresa in this case. So there should have been and would have been a mixture in that cargo area. And the fact that there isn't is a problem, right? Then you think about the sheer tiny amount of blood that they find of Stevens, and it's just absolutely suspect way that it looks. I mean, the squiggle by the ignition, which actually isn't too by the ignition. Actually, when you think about it, it's about 3.5, 4 inches away from the ignition. No blood around the ignition where this bleeding finger would have been turning the key, right? Nothing there, right? And it's like it's just in all the wrong places and just odd. And then there's flakes, blood flakes on the carpet. In the front area of the RAV4. What? Who bleeds flakes? Nobody bleeds flakes. And it's just like, yeah, bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. Then you move on to the fact that they found prints on the door handles, on the inside of the door handles, right? They found prints. Okay? They didn't match Stephen or Brendan, so they were just ignored, basically. It was like no big deal. And I know a lot of people have asked, well, did anybody check them against Colburn and Lanks? I don't think anybody did. But the fact of the matter is that you have prints that could potentially lead you to a pretty solid identification, or at least get pointed in the right direction, in case you have made a mistake. But instead, they ignore it and bury it, just like what happened over in the Scott Davis case. Okay? You had prints there, too. But because the prints didn't match Scott Davis, they got lost. Right? And that's what our law enforcement does. Okay? They are so busy trying to fit that square peg into a round hole sometimes that they don't care. Dogs can be taught to lie. Nose knows they do not lie about what they smell. I swear the next time I cut myself, I am going to bleed all over the place just to mess with the coppers. I will even go places and bleed there. Okay. And then the other problem with the RAV4 and the evidence of the in the RAV4 basically, right, is the hood latch DNA. Right? How flippin' ridiculous is this hood latch DNA? Right? 19 more times. I mean, the amount of it was 19 more times than DNA that they found anywhere else. Any other DNA that they found, it was 19 times more than any other touch DNA found. That's bizarre. Why would it be 19 times more? And then Zellner did an experiment. She had an experiment conducted where they had people open the hood of the RAV4 that she bought. That's exactly like Teresa's, or very similar. And she had people opening that hood latch, and they were leaving amounts that couldn't be detected. 4 did get detected. Four of the openings, there was a detectable amount. They were all 0.07, 0.04, 0.09. You know? So we're talking about hundreds of a nanogram that are getting left. And somehow Steve leaves 1.9 nanograms. 1.9 nanograms. Almost 2 full nanograms of DNA on that hood latch. How? No way. The next question about the RAV, and this is a question here. We're going to do a little poll, folks. You guys ready? We're going to do a little poll right here. Okay? I want you guys to give me, if your answer is yes, give me a 1. If your answer is, actually, well, let me ask the question, and then I'll assign the numbers. Right? Okay. You guys ready? Thank you, Charlie. Exactly, Kimberly. Yes. Or his buccal, or from his cheek. Either way. And it would also explain why Zellner's expert described it as being yellow, instead of looking like it got rubbed on a hood latch. Let me illustrate that for you guys really quick. Ali Apperson and Marissa Slusarsik did a little Q-tip test back when I first started going live, when we were talking about the hood latch DNA, and they both did a little test. Okay, so let me just show you real quick. Now, Zellner's expert described the swab that was sent to them. It was yellowish, like a light yellow color on the swab, right? Okay, light yellow, right? Okay. Okay, these are the ones that were. Allie did 4 different hood latch swabs on 4 different cars she had. You guys see how the color is coming out on these things, right? Very dark. You don't see any yellow. You don't even see brown. It's all decidedly black. Very black carbon, buildup on these hood latches. So how a hood latch swab would have been yellowish, well, I'll just put it this way. I believe the person who just suggested that it was the groin swab or the buccal swab, I believe they are exactly correct. And then there is the one that Marissa Slusarsik took. And this was in Canada, folks, in dead winter, cold as hell, right? And she went out and she swabbed the hood latch of her vehicle when it was like it was in the single digits, okay? And she still got, even though it was most likely frozen, she was still able to get, and it was black. It's black. These things are coming off black, not brown, yellow, you know, any of that. They're coming out black. And so it's extremely, extremely fishy that we have this yellow swab that gets, taken in and that gets tested. It's just bizarre, No blood on good or latch, hood or latch. You need two hands to open. Exactly. There would have been, hands on there would have been DNA. If he's leaving 1.9 nanograms on the latch, on the hood latch, he would have been leaving a comparable amount on the hood prop. He would have been leaving a comparable amount on the battery cables. You know what I mean? If he's leaving 1.9 in one place, he's going to be leaving significant amounts in other places as well. It's absolutely correct. That's what's wrong with this case. There's only little things to suggest, Stephen, but when you look at that evidence more closely, it doesn't pan out. They haven't tested anything else in that engine compartment to prove that Stephen was in there working on those battery cables. That he was doing any of those things, right? Not to mention the fact that it's Fassbender that ends up suggesting to Brendan that Stephen went under the hood, and that's how they get that whole narrative. And so because they get Brendan to say that after suggesting it to him outright, because he couldn't guess what they wanted, and they had to specifically say, did he go under the hood, right? And then Brendan says yes, and everything, and that's how they get in and get on. That they have the probable cause to be swabbing that hood latch, supposedly swabbing that hood latch. But as Kathleen Zellner's expert is pointing out, it's most likely going to be the sleight of hand that was pulled with the buccal or the groin swabs back when Stephen was being arrested. When those were being collected, and you have Stephen's affidavit where he says he saw Mark Wiegert basically not throw those in the trash and held on to them. And that is how swab relabeling is one of the easiest and best ways to plant evidence or to do, to make somebody look, guilty. And with making it look as legit as possible so that you don't get any blowback on it, essentially, right? So he was pointing out that it's usually going to be relabeled swabs rather than somebody actually going out and putting DNA on the latch to be swabbed. So okay, to get back to my question I was going to ask, right? Okay, ready? You guys ready for my question? You guys ready for the question? Not answering any more questions. Okay, rolls ready. All right, here we go. I'm going to give a 1. I'm going to ask you to answer a 1 for one answer and a 2 for the other answer, right? Okay, was the RAV4 hidden at Avery Salvage Yard? 1, if you feel it was hidden. If you actually feel that the RAV4 was hidden, type 1. If you believe it stuck out like a sore thumb and cried out for attention, type a 2. And let's see what everybody answers there. There we go. Yep, that's right. Charlie Bresh says 1. $2.5. Yep. There we go. So it's ridiculous, right? To suggest that this RAV4 was hidden. Okay? Dude, when you lean branches and tree branches and logs and hoods up against the car that's double parked on a really thin ridge, that sticks out like a sore freaking thumb. That's not hidden. Not in any sense of the word is it hidden. It's ridiculous to even suggest it. And then, obviously, as we're talking about that, right? We're talking about how was it hidden or did it stick out like a sore thumb, right? Then we move on to the fact that why is Pam Stern the only one that was given a camera? Why are Scott and Ryan giving her a camera? She shows up after everybody else. She's a latecomer. And then she wants to go to Avery Salvage Yard, and suddenly a camera gets brought out, and they're saying, oh, here, take this camera with you. I mean, that camera had to be there the whole morning when the searchers were, being coordinated into what areas they were going to go search and stuff. And that camera they didn't think to hand that out to anybody else. They waited until Pam came after everybody else was gone, and then, oh yeah, you know what? We have this camera. Here, take it with you. What? Right? I mean, these are the things in this case, guys, right? I mean, this is over and over and over again. We keep going through all these little stupid things. This case is a mess, and it looks fishy at almost every turn. Seriously, every turn. Then we have Colburn's Narnia fantasy, okay, with the key and I say Narnia fantasy because, I mean, how else are you going to explain this? You guys have probably seen my cabinet video, okay? The key couldn't hide cleverly. There's nowhere that the key could cleverly hide. There's nowhere for that to happen, okay? Cops carry the same thing I do, okay? On their belts. I'm an AV technician, folks. I'm crawling around in people's cabinets and looking at AV wires and stuff all the time. I have to have this. So do cops. Because when they're inspecting things and looking at things, they have to have something like this. So you're going to tell me that no cop went in there and shined their little light in to that cabinet? You're going to tell me, you want me to believe that? That no cop went in there and shined their light into that cabinet? No, never going to believe that. That's bull. And if they had shined their light in there, they would have seen exactly what I showed in my video about the cabinet. No matter what, you would have seen part of that key or part of the lanyard, and it would have been enough to get your attention and make you look closer. That's the truth of it. That is the truth. There is no place for it to cleverly hide, folks. This is just another magical thing. Okay? How many times are these idiots going to basically suggest magical things happened? And it's ridiculous. There's no magic here. Okay? There's no magical bleach. There's no magical keys. It's corruption. It is fishy at every turn. 7 times that happened, Erekose. They didn't get the key cut until their 7th search. Right. Well, it's cost him his life. And Stevens, on reflection, you look at things differently. So surely would feel stupid and can see for himself now. He was lied to, used, and manipulated. I think I came in halfway through a conversation there. Don't get angry, Kose. Colburn just isn't worth it. Hey, dude. Hey, Rule, if you didn't know, dude, people love it when I get fired up. They actually dig it. So here's the $36 million question. Were the pictures of the RAV4 already on the camera to help POG find it? Oh, I don't know. Interesting question, though. But even more important than $36 million, folks, I know a lot of people focus in on that $36 million, and I agree that is definitely a huge motive. I'm sorry, folks. Hold on just a second. All right. There we go. Okay, so just had to do something to deaden that. So, anyways. So, as I was saying, it's impossible what Colburn says. He walked up and played twist and shout with the cabinet and the key popped out. All that stuff. Everything about that. It's just bizarre, wrong, bull, BS. And that didn't happen. So, Travis, I'm not saying blame Brendan. I'm saying he's older now. Let's see. True motive is bringing down the whole state and releasing and paying so many. Oh, that's what I was talking about. Was even more important than the 36 million. Possibly more important than the 36 million was the depositions that were about to happen in November. Okay, Vogel and Kosarik were going to be the next ones deposed. Okay, and basically all the underlings had left a huge mess that was all going to fall on them. Right? It was not going to be pretty. Right? And so, as much as this may have been to avoid a $36 million lawsuit, folks, I think it was probably equally meant to avoid those depositions from happening and the black eye that would have came from them. So I believe that's a big part of it as well. All right. Then you have Kucharski, who on the stand says that it's more plausible than Colburn and Link planting the key, that it's more plausible that aliens put it there. Are you kidding me? I mean, I love it because that's like my favorite part of making a murderer, because I literally laugh out loud every time I hear him say that dumbass shit, right? I mean, oh my God. What a moron. You actually think that's more plausible than these two guys whose necks were in the noose, essentially, when it came to the civil lawsuit? And you think it's more plausible aliens put it there? Really? Daniel? It's like, holy Christ. So anyways, then with the key, there's the fact that there's none of Teresa's DNA on it. None. They don't need any stinking Teresa's DNA, right? They don't need that. But they got plenty of Steven's DNA on there. Plenty of it. What the hell? How do you end up with plenty of Steven's DNA and none of Teresa's? Right? I mean, it's bizarre. So that's another thing. Why do we only have a large abundance of Steven's DNA on the key and none of Teresa's? It would have been her key. Would have been a key she used all the time. Every nook and crevice on that key should have had some DNA from her. So, I mean, to find zero evidence of her on that key is extremely, extremely suspicious and fishy and odd and not right. Mm-mm. Then there's the question of why would Teresa be using a valet key, which is what that key was. That key was a valet key. I believe it would only open the driver's door and start the car. I believe is the only thing that key would do, and that's why it's called a valet key. Because I guess you give it to the valet guy so that he literally gets in, starts it, brings it to you, that sort of thing, right? Why would Teresa be using a valet key? What sense? I mean, are you kidding me? I don't know. That doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem plausible to me. I don't think Teresa was using her valet key, I don't know. That just seems odd. Plus, we see the picture where she clearly had a key ring and multiple keys. I mean, right? Wouldn't she though? She would have her studio that she shared with Tom Pierce. She would need a key for that, key for home at least one for both of those places, at least one, right? For each of those. I mean, she should, I don't know if she has like a locking gas cap on the RAV, maybe might have had one for that. I mean, but there would be multiple keys, not just one key, right? So that's one of the things that's more bizarre about this, I mean, just absolutely bizarre. So then we move on to February of 2006. Okay. This is where it's very telling for me, where we really, really see some of the really bad stuff going down in this investigation. We have on basically the end of February, around February 25th or whatever, they are actually going and seeing Jody every day. Tom Fassbender and Wiegert are going and seeing her every day. Why did they know find the right people? Well, that may be a question. That's maybe a good question, but I don't know the answer to it, so I'm not going to go into it here, Don. So, VIN number was, there was something about that, about the yeah, there was some things about that. What's interesting though is we're moving past the key, folks. In February, they're browbeating Jody. Okay, they're going and seeing her every day in jail, and they are browbeating her, and they are basically trying to get her to say any negative things about Steven, trying to get her to portray Steven as this very mean lover, mean guy, always, they were trying to insinuate that he beat her and do all these things. They were trying very hard and suggesting all these things to get her to say, and she just kind of continually, deflected all of it and everything, and then eventually she got sick of it, especially when the questions started getting sexual and they started really questioning her about her and Steve's sex life, that she eventually got fed up and she told them to go away. When they left that day, she told the jail, don't let him back in. I don't want to speak to him ever again. Don't let him back in. Okay? She got fed up with it. Then, Fassy and Fassbender and Wiegert, are now just sitting there going, oh, great, what do we do now? It shows that there's some desperation. It shows that they are aware that their evidence is somewhat questionable, and that they're aware of that. So to me, that's a huge thing. And then this whole thing with Jody then brings us in to what happened with Brendan. And, it's sad what happened with Brendan, but it's because they didn't have Jody anymore. They were feeling weak about, they knew that there was questionable issues with some of the evidence in this case, and they were smart enough to know that they wanted more. They wanted to get some more backup, more. They wanted to, they wanted to get a more solid case. And the way that they were trying to do that was to get it through a witness statement who could say Steven did something that they could use, right? So that's, to me, that's the significant thing that's going down in February. And me and Jay Jax and I were talking about this during Mammothon. It's 100% right that they targeted Jody. Jody told them to go kick rocks. Then they immediately targeted the Dassey boys, eventually settling on Brendan. The one, just like Jody is a victim of substance abuse and in the throes of substance abuse and therefore weak somewhat, then they go after Brendan. So, okay, folks, I'm going to go ahead and play a song for a second before I come back and go into Brendan. So I'll see you guys in just a couple minutes.
So let's keep talking about Avery. Yeah, let's keep talking till he's set free. Oh, you just listen, I think you'll see why it matters, really matters. aside the documentary, the state's version ludicrousy. Oh, all their claims so blatantly get torn to tatters. I think that matters. I bet you heard about Hoodlatch sweat, but maybe you ain't heard this yet. 19 more times the DNA that was left anywhere else that day. I think that matters. I really do. I think it matters. An ex-boyfriend with a day planner page, and yet they did not investigate. And who knows why, and who can say why he was signed into the crime scene that day. I think that matters. I really do. I think it matters. About the barrel that once was seized, but then returned to the Averys. The bones were found the next day, but not one photograph exists of where they lay. I think that matters. I really do. I think it matters. I could go on listing things off, 80 more things. I just keep on singing these songs till every freedom rings. I said it matters. It really, I know it matters. It could be you, I think it matters. It could be me, I know it matters. Work with Casey, it matters. I said it matters. It really matters. Get on.
Whoa. All righty. Hello there, folks. Michelle. Ryan H has her keys, possibly, I guess, you know. So where we're at now is Brendan. Right? So this is, for me, really, now I've just gone through and gone through a lot of the main stuff in the Avery investigation, the Teresa Halbach investigation, the opening couple weeks, month, 2 months of it. And I've gone through all that, right? But here's the thing. And on top of all of that, we have law enforcement targeting Brendan Dassey, this mentally limited 16-year-old kid. Okay? And they target him and they feed him everything they want him to say. Okay? Everything they can corroborate, right? That's the key, folks. Everything they can corroborate, okay? They feed to him. That way he makes statements that can be corroborated. Here's the rub. He doesn't make any statements that weren't fed to him that can be corroborated. Okay? Everything he said that wasn't fed to him, anything he offered on his own, anything he guessed at, and everything, that was all wrong. You know? And it was uncorroborated. You know? There's no evidence to corroborate any of those things that he offered that weren't fed to him. Okay? Only the things that were fed to him, because the investigators knew what the evidence was, or what it was going to be in terms of the hood latch, you know, because they clearly feed him the whole hood thing, going under the hood and all that, so that they can get back under there and they can use one of those buccal swabs or groin swabs, right? That's the telling thing about what happens with Brendan, folks, is if you look at the craven nature of Fassbender and Wiegert and how desperate they are. Desperate. It's what it is. It's desperation. Okay? They see no other avenue than to ruin a 16-year-old child's life because they hate Stephen Avery. That ain't right. It just ain't right. It's just an absolute abomination what they did to Brendan, and that they still stand by it to this day, even when everybody's looking at that damn thing and going, no way, no freaking way is that okay. Okay, that's the whole reason why they started requiring, interrogations of juveniles to be recorded. That's why states are starting to do that, because they want to make sure that crap like this isn't happening. Right? Right. So that's the issue, really, that comes to mind when we deal with Brendan Dassey. Obviously, we have other things that, dishonest things they do, like the control question. Trying to suggest that the control question in any way proves Brendan is guilty is ridiculous. What it does prove is that he was very willing to tell the investigators anything he thought they wanted to hear. That's what the control question does prove, that in spades, right? That's what it does prove. It does not prove that Brendan was resisting or guilty or any of this other crap that they say that the control question says. No. All it proves is that it was very easy for them to get Brendan, basically Brendan was very willing to tell them what he thought they wanted to hear. He was very willing to do it. And that's what the control question points out. And that's what the control question proves. The 7-bank majority are a bunch of freaking idiots. Because they put the control question in their decision as proof of Brendan's guilt and that he was resisting the interrogators. Absolute bull. Absolute bull. Right? All right. Be sure to leave your prints on the like button. Yep, and the subscribe one too. Thank you. Go over and subscribe to Stacy, by the way. That's who we were just listening to there. That was Stacy Seabrook. Go over and get subscribed to that guy. We're trying to get him to 1,000 subscribers before Rally next month. So please help us out with that. Brendan was very willing to not disagree with the investigators. Brendan was very willing to not disagree. Right. Okay, yes. Double negative. Absolutely. Yes, you are right, Erekose. Brendan just wanted to go back to class. I agree. Brilliant speaking on the topic. Any numpty can see Brendan was led to a confession. Vanessa, are you following Paul on Twitter? Oh, no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, So I mean, that's, I think, a huge part of what the whole thing with Brendan Dassey proves. And then it goes even further, because Brendan Dassey is failed at every single turn by his representation. Okay? Starts out with the guy who's related to the Halbachs, who waives his right to a preliminary hearing, right? Waives that right. And so now they don't even get to argue whether or not the state has enough evidence to bring a case against Brendan Dassey. So that goes bye-bye. Then he basically recuses himself after doing that one thing, recuses himself, and then that's when Len Kaczynski comes in. Len Kaczynski ends up coercing Brendan again with the help of Michael O'Kelly, and they throw him back to the wolves, Wiegert and Fassbender again, who then bully him into making a call to his mother and telling her he did all these things. And it's just again and again, and then they get rid of Kaczynski, and then he gets Frengen, right? And Frengen, did he even watch the full interrogation? How the F do you turn off the interrogation before your client recants? What the hell? How the hell do you do that? I mean, every turn he was failed. Brendan was utterly failed by everybody that represented him until Stephen and Laura came along. Utterly failed. It's sad. And it's, how does this happen? Did nobody give a damn about this 16-year-old kid and whether or not this cockamamie story was true? I mean, somebody besides all of us who have seen it and gone, what the hell? Somebody there in Wisconsin had to have the same thought. I mean, it's amazing that nobody spoke up about this. And this actually reminds me, I was on Paul's channel. Those of you who saw yesterday, I was on Paul's channel yesterday live with Rubber Ducky. And I'll tell you what, I found very interesting when Rubber Ducky started talking about how she became aware of Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey, right? And she was talking about how she heard back in about 2002, 2000, whatever, that there was potentially a prisoner that was going to get released from the prison, and she lived nearby. And eventually it came out that he was exonerated, DNA proved it and whatever, but originally the people in the area were against it. They didn't like it. But then when they found out that DNA proved it and all these things, blah, 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 they were fine. And Stephen gets out and whatever. So she was aware of Stephen. Then she heard he was bringing a $36 million lawsuit. And she said her first thought was like, oh, watch out. You want to be careful there, right? Then she heard he got arrested. Then she was saying she actually turned onto the side of thinking he was guilty, right? After watching all the press, because the press every single night was, or well, if judging by the comments we were getting in the chat yesterday, it was very close to daily that they were getting these very, damning news reports about Stephen Avery. And she totally admits that it swayed her. She thought Stephen was guilty. Then she watched Making a Murderer, and then she was like, oh boy, there you go. Her original instinct regarding Stephen and the 36 million ended up being correct. Or, well, she's now come back to that line of thinking, right? So I thought that was all very interesting, because why is there so much press about Stephen Avery being guilty before trial? Why is there so much of that? Why is there this press conference? Why does this press conference take place? Why do all these things happen? They shouldn't, and they do. And nobody cares. Well, nobody there that matters that could do something about it cares, I should say. I'd say there's probably a lot of people out there that care now, that have, that think it's wrong and, that sort of thing. But we got to get somebody who's in a position to actually do something about it, right? Yeah. So next thing we'll move on to is the CD and the Dassey computer. Look at all of the things around this that are all the games being played, misrepresentations that are being made, all that. The computer is being referred to as Brendan's computer, even though it was in Bobby's room. It's being, the CD is held in Tom Fassbender's personal custody for 12 years. And then it's handed over after Stephen's motion for post-conviction relief is denied by Judge Sukowitz. Then it's handed over. Not before to be part of the motion for post-conviction relief, but after. Not making this stuff up, folks. It's true. It's mind-boggling, and they're getting away with it. Nobody is calling it what it is, or at least nobody there in Wisconsin who might have the ability to do something about it is calling it what it is. They're not calling a spade here. They're just ignoring it. So that's disturbing. But we know that computer was in Bobby's room. So saying it was Brendan's computer is very disingenuous. The way that they held on to the forensic examination of the Dassey computer, they held on to all that stuff for 8 months. Okay. And then at that point, instead of handing over everything, including the investigation, the CD that was created by the investigator to highlight some of the disturbing things that were on the computer, that is held back, right? The thing that could have just been popped into any computer and that had a PDF reader and it could have been pulled up, right? No, they were given 8 DVDs of all kinds of information, all that, that hasn't been sifted through essentially by a forensic, computer forensic investigator. And Dean and Jerry with 1 month before Denny are supposed to go through this and find everything that's already been found by an investigator. But that's not being turned over. Then you have the Fassbender report about this CD that's handed over on, December 9th, like I said, a month before Danny's due. And it's buried in a stack of 40 other DCI reports. Okay? So it's like a stack of 41 reports that comes in on December 9th. And one of those is the Fassbender report regarding this CD. Right? Bizarre. Look at the games they're playing. It's obvious there's something dishonest going on. Obvious. It's painfully obvious. Right? Well, yeah, why didn't they? But they probably realized that KZ's people were going to go through and find the Fassbender report eventually, and that they were going to, they probably realized that that the jig was going to be up at some point, and Kathleen Zellner was going to figure it out. So they figured they would want to. My impression, or what I think happened, is they felt like they wanted to get in front of it because they knew that Kathleen Zellner was going to stumble upon the Fassbender report and go, "Wait, there's a CD? Where's that? We don't have a CD. Where is that?" Right? It would have begged that question. So I think they were preempting that moment by handing it over the way they did. But look at the way they did it. They did it after the motion's denied, thinking that the appeals court would never remand it back. But the appeals court did remand it back. So it's like, it's very interesting watching the way that the state does things, because for me it's very telling of their mentality and what they're trying to do and what they're about, right? Okay. Moving on to the final subject. The final subject. You guys can all pretty much guess what that's going to be. They did it that way because they hoped that the Court of Appeals wouldn't remand it, but the Court of Appeals did, and you can tell they're stewing over it. They hoped that the Court of Appeals wouldn't remand what we're going to talk about now, which is the destruction of the bones, or the giving back of the bones to the Halbachs. They didn't think that the court. I think they hoped or thought that the Court of Appeals wouldn't remand that back, but the Court of Appeals did. The Court of Appeals is seeing what's happening here, and they're seeing like the voicemail of Mark Williams calling Zellner, thinking he's talking to Fallon, and saying we should stall KZ and blah 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 and all those things. Basically obstruction. So it's like the appeals court's not. They don't seem to be very amused by what the state is doing here, the way things are rolling out. And like I said, everything keeps coming out and it's cutting against the state. Continuously, over and over again, this stuff is coming out and it's cutting against the state. So it's bizarre. But so the issue with the bones, obviously, is this. I started talking about it earlier. The prosecution said about these quarry bones that KZ wants to test. They said at trial that they wouldn't spend 20 seconds on them because best that could be said was they were possible human. That's not actually true. Leslie Eisenberg said that most of those fragments are human. Okay, the only one that she said was possible human was the hip bone. Right? So, while we're talking about the hip bone, folks, you guys have heard me talk about in the past that there was a hip bone found over in the quarry, and there was still a bone articulated with it, right? Okay, I'm going to show y'all right now that, where you can see that. Okay. Good. Okay, so right here, the right sacroiliac area includes a portion of the right side of the sacrum and the still articulated auricular surface of the ilium. So those are two bones still articulated, folks. That means that is most likely where the bones were burned or staged or what, because trust me, if you move bones that are completely dried out and burned and everything, they will not stay articulated together. That's not likely to happen. as you start to move them, they will all fall apart and not be articulated with each other anymore. So I know I've always talked about that, so I wanted to show you guys. This is actually from Leslie Eisenberg report, and she's actually saying that it was still articulated with the ilium. So just wanted to point that out also while we're here talking about the bones. All right. So can't there have been more to determine from them? No, possibly of the well, that's what Kathleen Zellner was going to do because of the new ability with this quick DNA, this rapid DNA testing, that it's able to get DNA profiles from severely burned and calcined bones. It was used in the California wildfires, and they were able to identify people's loved ones using the technology. So it certainly would have been a possibility if the state had obeyed its own statute and held on to that evidence, that biological evidence, which they should have done. So, I think so. I think it's huge because for bones to be articulated means they had to not be disturbed very much, right? That's the way that rolls out for me. Okay, to still be articulated means that they didn't move much from their original spot. So, obviously, these bones should have been held on to. They were given back to the Halbachs. Fallon, Gahn, and Hawkins were there using Dr. Eisenberg's report to help them pick what bones they were giving back. It's clear that the prosecution thought those bones in the quarry were Teresa's. Otherwise, they would not have given them back to the Halbachs, which proves that they were being dishonest at trial when they said, we're not even going to spend 20 seconds on those bones because those bones, the best that can be said for those is they're possible human. That's not even true. Dr. Eisenberg identified all but one of the bones KZ is asking to test. All but one of them were identified as human. They weren't identified as Teresa by Eisenberg, but they were identified as human. And one, the hip bone, was deemed partial or possibly human, right? Possible human. So that one bone, and that's the one bone that the state talks about in their response, by the way. I thought that was interesting. That is the one bone they talk about. They don't want to talk about the other bones that KZ's asking about. They just want to talk about the one bone that's possible human, right? Very, 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 very disingenuous. The state is, and then look at their arguments. They don't want to argue the merits of this stuff. They just want to argue that Avery is procedurally barred from bringing any of these claims. Very disingenuous. Yes, articulated means like a joint where two bones come together where they're still articulated. Articulating means a joint, like an articulating mount for a TV. Okay, you have a TV that you can pull away from the wall and turn it. That's called an articulating mount. And the reason it's called an articulating mount because it has joints on it that can move. So when they say that the bones were still articulated, they're saying that they were still connected and, in place. I thought there was a forensic pathologist that said there's no possible way you cannot distinguish animal bones from human bones. I don't know about that. I thought they said there was none of the spine. Nope. They found pieces of spine over in Avery's burn pit. Knees are articulated. Yeah, a knee joint, a hip joint, a shoulder joint, even like your elbows. Anywhere where you bend, your fingers, anywhere where you can bend, that's where articulation happens, right? So. These clowns are possibly humans. Yeah, that's funny. So, look, So that's it. That's what we ran through here today, folks. That's, running through, hitting the high points of all of the just bogus stuff that you just find right on the surface in this case. That's just right on the surface. So this brings me back, and this is where I'm going to wrap up, but this brings me back to when I was talking to Rubber Ducky yesterday over on Paul's channel, and she was talking about this press that was so strong back then, that was proclaiming Stephen Avery guilty long before his trial and all that sort of stuff. And I got to thinking, like, who's informing the press here? Who's telling the press these things? Because we're looking at this stuff now and we're going, this is all fishy. Why didn't the press know about this back then? Well, because they didn't want the press to know about all this fishiness. They, obviously the press found out about some of it, but I don't think they found out anywhere near the stuff that we've all found digging through these documents. You know what I mean? So who's putting this stuff out in the press? Who's responsible for that? It had to be somebody from the state or from Manitowoc or from Calumet, somewhere, somebody involved in this had to be doing that, feeding that negative information over to the news agencies. I think it would be interesting to know who that person is. Missed the fact that Manitowoc was at the scene in the first place. Well, you're right. You're right. Actually, I did. And that's going to bring me back to Michael Bushman real quick. I did touch on this. I did start to go into this, but I didn't finish my train of thought on it. So we know that Deborah Kakich is the one department of Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department didn't have a conflict of interest, right? So here's the odd thing. You guys heard me talking about Michael Bushman earlier, right? And how he was on the original arrest party of Stephen back in 1985. Then in the Teresa Halbach investigation, he's brought out of retirement, right? And he's helping with the investigation. He's actually kind of like calling shots over on Cuss Road, right? Retired Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department employee, right? So let me get this straight. I just want to make sure I have this completely straight here. We're able to have all of Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department on the property. We're even able to have retired members of Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department that are directly connected to Stephen's 1985 case, and they're allowed on the salvage yard and in the investigation. But not the one department of Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department that didn't have a conflict of interest. The one department that didn't have that is the one department that was barred. That is the big deal. Manitowoc County shouldn't have ever been there. But not only were they there, they had retired Manitowoc County deputies that had been involved in Stephen's 85 case there, but they couldn't have the coroner, Deborah Kakich. No, we can't have her there. The only department that didn't have a conflict of interest. And then you find out that she was ready to show up with a forensic pathologist and stuff. And you find out that she was ready to show up and do it proper and showing up with the way you're supposed to, that she was actually going to do it right. That's why she was barred, folks. That's why she was barred. You can go along with any, you can listen to all this crap that Ken Kratz says. It's bull. You can tell it's bull because he says stupid things like, coroners, what do I need a coroner for? A coroner comes in and kicks the body and says they're dead. What, dude? Did you actually just really say that out loud? Are you an idiot? And then we find out that the coroner was ready to show up with a forensic anthropologist, whatever, pathologist, anthropologist. That we find out that she was ready to show up with that. That day there, right then, boom. Now, not let a bunch of idiot deputies trumping up their fire inspectors, qualifications to somehow make them, able to collect, able to excavate a fire pit and all that crap that they did there. Instead of having an Ertl, instead of calling for their crime scene tech and his team to come do it and take pictures of it and all that sort of stuff. No, they just have these officers who are trumping up their fire inspector qualifications, and they're just collecting them into boxes, and they just send boxes to Leslie Eisenberg. I mean, This is so counterintuitive. There's so much wrong in this. It's absolutely ridiculous. Good old boy. Yep. Bushman, definitely. If a body was burned in a barrel, wouldn't there be some type of trace DNA or even smell left on the inside walls? January, right? I honestly am not sure about that, T1. That'll be a question we'll have to ask Ripper when he does his little burn. Maybe we can ask him to throw a steak into the burn barrel, when he does this. So I'll get in touch with Ripper and we'll see about that, T1. Finn's tweets are awesome. Yep, go check out Finn on Twitter. She's awesome, doing the hashtag 80 more things. You guys might notice the little hashtag down below the video there. We love Finn. So, for me, that pretty much wraps it up, for now. I mean, those are the main points. And, I may go ahead and revisit this with Allie later on, where her and I kind of put our heads together and really kind of come up with a really complete kind of timeline and kind of go through things. We'll see if Allie's willing. But it's just interesting. Just hitting the main points, just hitting the high points. Here I am. We're over 2 hours in. I was just hitting the high points, right? So, before Chewy.com. Bushman is a loyal cleanup guy, 100% on board. I agree. The Bushman's dirty, way dirty. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there, folks. I think we'll go ahead and listen to another Stacy song on the way out. And it's like I said, all these little things, the fact that the RAV4, the paperwork showing the RAV4 seized on the 3rd, the paperwork showing Stephen Avery being reported as a murder suspect on the 3rd. Okay, this is before they found this is 2-3 days before they found the RAV, and it's 5 days before they found any remains. Right? It's just so bizarre. So we're going to go out with a little truth train. All right, folks? You guys good with that? Did you bribe your neighbors? Did I bribe my neighbors what? What do you mean? Is it bedtime for you, Amanda? Good night, Amanda. Yep. Get on the train. Right?
He's innocent. The day always comes if you're innocent.
Get on the train before it leaves the station. Wisconsin versus Avery, a complete fabrication. Get on the train before it leaves town. The truth train is coming, gonna run them down, run them down. And we all know Stephen and Brendan were blamed, but it does not take a brain surgeon to see that they were framed. And yes, we know what this was about. The civil suit, the settlement that did not want to pay. I want to pay out.
You're all welcome.
And you may hear this song, or maybe you don't get it. I suggest you look up TikTok, Manitowoc on Reddit. There you will find trial transcripts, evidence files, and reports, and you will start to fathom the corruption within the courts. And as you shake your head because everything seems demented, you will find yourself in company of 3 unbanked judges that dissented. But don't you worry, You're not going insane. You just happen to sit down on Zellner's True Train. Get on the train before it leaves the station. Final destination, inevitable exoneration. Get on the train before it leaves town. The truth train is coming, gonna run them down, run them down. Get on the train.
All righty, folks. Thank you for being here. Hope you guys found it interesting. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. Go over and subscribe to Stacy, Allie, Rule. You know, go show all these people some love, folks. You know, Tracy Struncy, or, you know, basically a lawyer, Paul Capaldi. You know, let's get all these people to get their subscriber counts up, because I know all these people are going to be at Rally, and I want all these people to be going live and creating a lot of really exciting content for everybody that can't make it to Rally. So remember those things. Go over and get subscribed to those people, folks. Please do it. And we'll talk to you later.